in brightest day, in blackest night. All other podcasts tremble in fright. Losers cower before the power. Oranges lust and blues you can trust. Indigos feel and white ones heal. Yellows scare and green ones dare. That sapphire love and black hands glove will rock your foundation without hesitation. Chad and Mars face evil's might. Respect their power, for they'll make you see the light. Hi, everybody. I'm Chad Bokelman.
I'm Mark Marble.
And I'm Will Smith.
And this is the LanternCast.
Episode 638.
That's right. As you heard at the top of the episode, we have a guest. Everybody on your best behavior.
And not that Will
Please.
Smith, thank God.
A much kinder, gentler Will Smith.
Keep that podcast name out of your mouth.
Yeah.
If you did not see the episode title or the album art in clicking on this latest episode of the show, then surprise, today's episode, and it's not like we did a good job hiding it last time we recorded, is basically a mega episode, and we're calling it Everything We Know About Lanterns, as in the HBO Max show that is coming out in August, right? They updated the release date to August now, right?
Yep. We now have the official release month, but no specific date just yet.
That's right. Will is the guy behind the scenes, I think, of all of us in terms of all of us Lantern content producers. I think Will's probably got his ear to the ground the most, in specifically around like the larger media creation, I would say, because I don't want to say just live action, because I feel like you're picking up news about like upcoming, animated features or voice actors and so on and so forth. So I would say like whether it's animation, whether it's TV, whether it's movies, you're kind of ears to the ground on all of it, right?
Yeah. If it is my adventures with Green Lantern, if there's another project coming out that they announce, if I can find anything online that will tell me who is auditioning for a role or voice acting potentially, or if one of those casting calls goes out, I'm one of those people who scours the internet to try to find that stuff and get as much information as possible.
And because of that, he's our best source for information on this, because as the teaser has finally come out, there's a ton of misinformation out there about this show that is either just wholly made up, spun off based on rumors, or just maybe speculation extrapolated from a singular sentence that was actually published out there about that. So we thought we'd separate fact from fiction a little bit, and also dive deeper into our personal thoughts on the teaser at the end of the episode, because we gave you a brief look at our thoughts last episode, but we're definitely going to deep dive this time around. All right, I guess with that, let's head into it. So where do you want to start, Will?
I think we should just start with like the initial kickoff to everything. When James Gunn took over at DC, him and Peter Safran, there was a bunch of changes that were happening, things going on behind the scenes. There was already a Green Lantern show in place that was being worked on, and it was announced on January 31st of 2025, I believe it, or 2024. That show was being scrapped in its initial form, and a new Lantern show was being made in its place.
Right, that was the Berlanti Core show back in the day.
Yeah, and the big difference between the two shows from James Gunn himself was that what Berlanti was after was a 4-quadrant space opera, and what they're designing was going to be a smaller in scope, in the mold of True Detective show. The idea came from James Gunn and Tom King themselves, and then they outlined a script that had them. It was Tom King, Damon Lindelof, Chris Mundy, who wrote the actual like outline for what the show was going to be. Those three folks are also considered the co-creators, not James Gunn, for the record. I know a lot of people associate him with the show, or if they don't like something in marketing, they're like, look what James Gunn is doing. He is not as involved with this as he was in Creature Commandos or Peacemaker or Superman or any of that. This is kind of, Tom King, Damon Lindelof, and Chris Mundy's thing specifically.
Though I would assume he has final say, right?
Yeah, I mean, just like all things in the DCU, he's going to get that final check mark over it. But I think his whole big thing is, I want to have a great script that we really like to tell a good story first, and then everything else is a lot easier to put together after that.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So yeah, I think that started it off everything. I think in terms of confusion, because if I'm not mistaken, at least some of the early speculation about this show sounded like people were taking piecemeal bits of plot or character appearances or design or whatever from the original Berlanti rumors, as opposed to seeing that Lanterns was supposed to be its own thing.
Yeah, and it's not just, when that first happened. There was a whole bunch of this misinformation still happening, even in my social circles, within like the last 3 or 4 months, where I've been on Discord and people are talking about, well, I'm pretty sure they cast, Alan Scott. And I'm like, no, that's from the original Berlanti show. They had cast in Alan Scott. He's not been cast in Lanterns at all, as far as we're aware.
Just like when people were talking about the fact that, oh my God, this show's never going to happen because they've been working on this show for like 5 years now. It's like, no, that was the Greg Berlanti show.
Yeah, that's a completely different show, and I just think the way it was first brought to everybody's attention, it didn't help, because there's continued to be a lot of misinformation. And then the other big thing is Lanterns, in terms of like how locked down they have all the information about the show. This is the most tight-lipped production I have followed for any fandom, show or circle that I've ever been a part of. Like, the least amount of information officially coming out from DC and HBO compared to any other thing that I've ever followed. It is so tight-lipped.
What would you expect to see normally? Like, not obviously a specific point, but like, heard something about the plot, heard something about specific cast several months earlier than we actually did. Like, what would that look like?
In other fandoms, it's pretty common to see, like, on first days of filming, there will be a post on like Twitter, and they have, the clapper board, and it'll have the date on it for basically like them advertising that they're finally filming this thing and who's directing the first episode. And then you would do the same thing for the wrap. Like, you'd tweet out like, it's a wrap, and you'd have the clapper board, or you'd have some people in the background. But we were even into filming the show, or the show almost being done being filmed, and they were still announcing new cast members on the show, which, again, for people who aren't really following this as closely as I am, you would think that they still haven't even started filming if they're announcing some of the new cast to the show. The other thing is, we had that picture drop in February of 2025, and then we didn't get anything until December. Not a single extra photo, not anything approved where it's like Aaron Pierre is on set and they allow him to take a quick photo somewhere just to get people talking about the show, really. Like, it has just been very, very tight-lipped, tightly sealed.
Now, why do you think that is, if you had to speculate? I mean, off the top of my head, I would suspect some of it at least would have to do with if what James Gunn at least has hinted at what's going on here, that the bigger picture story of what John and Hal have to deal with has such major potential ramifications for the DCU that they just don't want to kind of spoil part of that, at least.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at even Superman, when they were filming Superman and they had these outdoor scenes, I think there's like a newspaper that's like the Clevelander or the Cleveland something newspaper. They actually went to Reddit and told people that they got walkie-talkies. So they were like listening in, being nearby the Superman, like where they were filming, and being like, they knew what was being filmed and when and who was showing up and who was leaving on what days. It was just so much more wide open. And I don't think that it hurt the film. But I do think that stuff like that sometimes does help build anticipation and hype and excitement. I don't know, maybe HBO, this being their thing, where Superman was more James Gunn and DC's thing. Maybe the NDAs are so much different that people are scared to break anything or put any information out. This is the first time I've experienced it. So I'm not really like 100% certain why it has been this tightly sealed. The nice thing, though, is that by the time we get an official trailer and then we watch episode 1, most of us are going to be going in really, really completely new compared to, those other shows where you feel like you already know everything that's happening.
That's true.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting though, if for being so tight-lipped, they still had their teaser leaked.
That to me has been the most hilarious part of it. Everything that they have made sure to not put out, no statements, and then they put out their little teaser that's like, hey, we got something more coming. And then it had to be within a half hour.
Yeah. I
got messaged an unlisted link from the HBO YouTube page. And they were like, is this legit? I click it and immediately I click download. I was like, yeah, I'm taking this.
Yeah, you and me both. I knew it was going to get taken down as I immediately went to a Twitter downloader.
I linked it to a buddy, and by the time I linked it to them and they clicked it, they were like, what is this supposed to be? Because nothing is happening. And I was like, dang, that is very, very quick.
Yeah. They were on it quick. And then what, an hour, 2 hours later, it was like, well, you got us. Here it is.
I did get a message from somebody. I don't know if they're on the social team or whatever, but they were more or less like cats out of the bag, I guess. And they're just going to put the whole thing out now because there's no putting this back in at this point. Everybody has it. We would only be hurting ourselves in terms of views by letting everybody see it now, and then we don't put it out until tomorrow. So it's going out.
Hey, it worked. Well, I guess that
from an exposure perspective, no matter what, it worked.
Oh yeah, didn't you make a post the other day, Will, about it was the #1 trailer? It beat out Toy Story.
Yeah, that was wild. Toy Story had held the #1 trending spot for weeks at this point, and things would rotate between 2, 3, 4, and 5, but I don't think anything got close to surpassing Toy Story. And then the Lanterns one dropped, check it the next day, and it was the #1 trending. It was #1 the day after that too, and then since then it's been the #2 trending, still holding off Toy Story 5 and the final season of The Boys. The #1 trending became something called the glitch. Mm-hmm. I've never heard of it, but I guess people are clicking it and checking it out.
Gotcha. All right. Well, you've talked a lot about all the cast announcements. Should we pivot into the cast and who's all on the crew?
I think we have one more thing to kind of go over around the people behind the camera.
Yeah.
And that would be we do know officially that the executive producers on the show are Chris Mundy, Damon Lindelof. James Gunn gets one because it's his baby. And so Peter Safran also gets one. Tom King. But there's two different names, which are Ron Schmidt and James Hawes. They are executive producers and they have other roles on the show as well. Of that group, Chris Mundy, who's coming off of Ozark, which was a hit show, he's going to be the official showrunner for Lanterns. And James Hawes, who was the last person I mentioned as one of the executive producers, he had previously worked on Apple's hit show Slow Horses. He's directing the first 2 episodes of Lanterns. And then the people directing the last 6 are Stephen Williams, Gita Vasant, and Alik Sakharov. I think each person is getting 2 episode chunks, but I don't know which ones. But if you go to WB's press site for Lanterns, they mention these are the 4 directors, and that specifically James Hawes will be directing the first 2 of them.
Gotcha.
And then the
any major credits for those?
Like I said, for James Hawes, Apple's not a very popular network. It's got the smallest user base out of most of the popular streamers. So anytime
Mark and I have been talking about that.
Yeah, and I love Apple. I think the shows that go on there are quality, but they have such a small share of the market that anytime they have a show that does trend on social or it gets on the Nielsen charts, it is a big deal. And Slow Horses is one of those shows. It's like a cop show too, not similar to True Detective though. But it's a show that does great numbers for Apple, and they put it out every 8 to 10 months. There's a new season already ready to go. And when they finish filming the one and it's airing, the final episode finishes, and then they play the trailer for the next season already. It's been crazy, the turnaround that they have on that. And I low-key have some hope that if Lanterns does well enough, we get quicker turnarounds and we're not waiting 2 or 3 years like a lot of shows are now.
Yeah. Any of those? I know, Mark, you've been talking about like Damon Lindelof and his past experiences and what that does or doesn't tell you about Lanterns. Any of those names ringing a bell to you?
I mean, Mundy, obviously, Mundy's the biggest name other than Lindelof, and even if you want to include Tom King, who I have many reservations about, but in general, but Mundy's, yeah, just like Will said, those are probably the biggest names of these people that names. Some people, I'm not going to say most people, but some people might recognize all three of them. Mundy probably being the least recognizable, but still, like Will said, that he has something in the resume that would make people go, oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think Lindelof obviously is the biggest one for anybody who isn't a Green Lantern fan, but you hear that this person is working on a show. When Damon Lindelof has The Leftovers, Watchmen, Lost, like there's a long line of, you might not like the ending of Lost, but in general, these were pretty solid TV shows made for a specific audience that were critically reviewed well, won a bunch of awards. Like the dude kind of knows what he's doing when it comes to television. And like he'd be the one that gets people the most hyped if you're not just coming to this because you're a Green Lantern or a comic book fan.
Yeah.
The name Ron Schmidt, I haven't looked him up much, but I know basically nothing about that guy as an executive producer. It's a pretty unique name where I don't really have info on them.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So all that together, and these guys, as you already mentioned, the show will come out in August this year, 2026, and it's going to be 8-hour-long episodes, and it's going to air both on HBO Cable as well as HBO Max, because it's going to be considered one of the premier Sunday night shows that they like to put out, like a Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, where it's like 8 or 9 your time. It's going to drop on both cable and the app.
So that hasn't changed, right? Because one of the things I noticed about the teaser was, we know when this project first was announced, first it was an HBO Max only show. Then they changed it to being an HBO show. But I did notice that how much HBO Max was like right in the forefront in the beginning of the trailer. So it did make me wonder if there had been some kind of potential reconsidering of just making it a Max exclusive as opposed to just an HBO exclusive. But as far as you know, that's the last information we had heard, that it switched from Max to just HBO is still current, right? That's what it should be.
Yep. Yeah. It's going to be treated like one of the big dogs, which is why I also have a lot of hope that they are advertising heavily at San Diego Comic-Con just a month before.
All right. Well, who's in front of the camera?
So we have a fairly large cast that we know about, and then there's a lot of people rumored. We are not going to cover the rumored folks. We are only going to cover the people that we know have been officially cast because it has hit the trades or somebody who's worked on the show specifically has talked about. So obviously, kicking off, everybody knows they have cast both a Hal Jordan, who will be played by Kyle Chandler, and Jon Stewart, who is going to be played by Aaron Pierre. Those are the two leads of the show. You get your two main characters, your two leads, who I think both have pretty good star power. I started watching Rebel Ridge only because I was trying to study like who Aaron Pierre was as an actor and what kind of roles he could do. And it really put me onto everything else he's done. And I think a lot of people are probably familiar with Kyle Chandler's work. Mm-hmm. A lot of his old stuff is phenomenal. And there was a new movie that came out on Netflix called The Rip. He was in that. He was incredible in it as well. We also have Sheriff Carey, who is going to be played by Kelly MacDonald. As far as we know, this is an original character. She's the town's sheriff. She is also married to, actually, I won't add that because I don't know if it's been announced that like she's married to somebody on the show. And then the fourth person I have in the top quadrant is William Macon, who will be played by Garrett Dillahunt. And Macon is described as a modern cowboy, a self-righteous, conspiracy-minded man who masks his ruthless ambition behind a charming and calculated facade. And every single one of these was put out by The Hollywood Reporter and Deadline.
Okay.
Do you guys have any thoughts on those four actors, Garrett Dillahunt, Kelly MacDonald, Aaron Pierre, or Kyle Chandler?
For me, Aaron Pierre, I actually recognize. I didn't see his the show you mentioned, but I did watch Krypton.
Me too.
Both seasons, and he played Dev M on Krypton, which in the long run of the care, I mean, obviously for a show that focused on Superman's grandfather,
Yes.
yeah, there are not a whole lot of, big names to focus on there. But he played a relatively, I would say maybe he was definitely part of the main plot, but just sort of writing the line of B tier character there. But his acting was really good. He played this stoic military man pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, and I think that's also kind of what he played in Rebel Ridge, with an American accent. I know some people had commented on how he sounds in the teaser, but when I watched Rebel Ridge, I thought to myself a lot of those same qualities, and same as you're saying with Krypton, that Dev M role, a lot of those do translate to kind of how we would assume John Stewart could be played on screen.
Yeah, for sure. As for Kyle Chandler, I've seen him obviously most recently in Godzilla content, but
Yes.
beyond that, I think he's a good actor. Look, I get the whole thing about we've all talked about it to death at this point. The age thing is they made their decision. They filmed the show now. Like it's too late. Okay.
Yeah. It's not going back.
Yeah, this argument is null and void at this point. But at the same time, he's a good actor, and I do agree with Mark about the whole Southern accent thing we're going with here.
Yeah, it's a little odd.
But beyond that, I think he's a good Hal from what we've seen.
I think that was kind of my biggest takeaway from the teaser, is that I thought he played for 2 minutes a Hal that was very well and easy for me to identify. I was pretty excited about that.
I have concerns, but
Here we go. I said, here we go.
Yeah, well, that'd probably be best discussed when we get to the actual teaser stuff. To be fair, but I don't have. Also like Kyle Chandler as an actor, and like I said, the issues. If there's going to be issues with him being Hal or the version of Hal that we get, I'm not going to blame him. It's going to be how it's written and what they want. I mean, but of the ones you announced, Kyle Chandler is always good because I'm a Hal guy, so I'm more interested in Hal, even though we suspect that DC is not most interested in Hal. But based on their decision to want to make an older Hal, that I think he was a really good choice. And actually, in my mind, he probably was a better choice than Brolin. I don't think I could see Brolin doing the role, but I think Kyle Chandler probably brings more to the table, or can bring more to the table, depending on how the role is written.
I agree. And I think that if Brolin did get the role, I think a lot of people would just see it as Brolin on screen and not Hal Jordan. And I worry that would have taken away something from it. We can go to the batch of the next 4, which is a character named Zoe, who is going to be played by, I butcher her name every time, but I think it's Borna Jaganathan. And I, again, could be butchering that. Zoe is described as effortlessly confident and poised in any setting, even those where she stands out. She is every bit as composed and cunning of the influential men around her. She is rumored to be a love interest of somebody, but she's also the wife of William Macon, who in the first batch, that was played by Garrett Dillahunt. And that was announced on November 15th, 2024, that she was going to be in the show. The next person is probably, for a lot of people, the favorite of everybody that's been cast so far. That's Sinestro. Sinestro will be played by Ulrich Thompson. He's a former Green Lantern who turned rogue and is described as ruthless yet undeniably charming. Sinestro's manipulative nature drives his enduring obsession with his former mentee, Hal Jordan. And again, for a lot of people who have put a lot of comments online about what Sinestro will be and what his role is in the show, his official description says he is a former Green Lantern, not a current one. That want to help lead people to where he may actually be in the show. He would definitely not be donning a green ring and uniform in this show. Next character is somebody who is an older person who was cast for a role I thought would be younger, but then everybody loved him. And that is Guy Gardner. Will be played by Nathan Fillion, who did the role, I thought, tremendously in the Superman movie. And Variety put that out on March 31st, 2025, that Fillion would be in at least a couple, or I think 3 episodes or so. So him returning to this now puts him in Superman, Peacemaker, and Lanterns. So he's having a good run so far. And then the fourth and final character of this batch is Billy Macon, obviously son of William Macon. And that's played by Jason Ritter, who I think is also another great actor. And it says Billy Macon is described as a good-looking charmer who does his father's bidding. Capitalizing on his family's reputation, he clings to his small-town ego and has everything to lose. And Variety put that out on March 14th, 2025.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I recognize. I feel like I recognize Ulrich Thompson's face, but I'm scrolling through his IMDb and I have no idea where I recognize. None of this is familiar to me.
Same here. The only thing he has ever been in that I have watched was Banshee. And I watched it because I wanted to see Anthony Starr play a different character than Homelander. And in that show of Banshee, he's amazing.
Okay. Well, trust your word for it.
I think it's interesting that he's supposed to be in all 8 episodes. At least according to IMDb, which again makes me think that we could see flashbacks to when he was a Green Lantern, because it's hard to imagine that he's going to pop up right in the midst of their investigation right away. But he could. But I don't know. I don't think I've seen him anything. I have seen Porna. I also appreciate the fact that I think her IG page makes fun of the porn, her name being so close to porn. I know her from Never Have I Ever. And HBO.
Oh, I didn't even know she was in that.
On Netflix, yeah, she I believe is the mother of another actress who I can't pronounce. The main star of Never Have I Ever. I believe she is her mother on that show. That was a really good show. So I do know her. So that's kind of cool. I think. Yeah, I'm trying to remember who they said she was going to potential love it. I think they actually said some outlets have said she's going to be a potential love interest for John, which I find weird because she's significantly older than John. The actress
I'm actually
yeah,
looking right now at the Deadline article, and it does specifically mention that John is the love interest.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting because I remember that because as soon as they cast her, along with someone else, I'm sure we're going to mention, Nicole Ari Parker, is like it was kind of interesting that, again, just based on the age difference alone, you would think she would be more of a match for the Hal that they're doing. But then again,
Jason Ritter, I recognize from Parenthood. He was on Parenthood for a while as a love interest for one of the main characters and stuff like that. I thought he did well in that particular role, but I haven't seen him in much since then. So
everything I have seen him in is something where he plays a character that is a little bit goofy. Like, I've not seen Matlock, but I don't know why, but I watched Raising Dion. I think that was on Netflix at one point, and I don't know if it went 2 or 3 seasons, but he's in the whole show. And right from the jump, when you meet him, he's like a weird character, and he remains weird the entire time. But he is a very charming actor, and then it doesn't hurt. But when I'm doom scrolling like TikTok or Instagram Reels, he'll pop up and he's just doing random magic tricks in real life while he's like in between takes on set to do other shows and movies and stuff. He just seems like an all around kind of cool dude.
Oh, right. I think we can.
Personally, I'm very interested in who you think who Laura Linney is going to be. Do you think she's going to be Carol, or do you think it's going to be like Hal's mom in a flashback? Because as soon as they cast her, I was thinking maybe this is going to be our Carol.
Yeah. So I try not to get influenced by what everybody says online, but the overwhelming majority of everybody on any social network I'm on all believe that she's going to be playing Carol, which I feel like if they were having Carol in the show, that's one of the people that you would definitely announce to the trades and make a big deal out of it and have a Variety and Deadline and Hollywood Reporter headline with a character name. That's a character that's big enough that you should put that out there for everybody so there is no confusion. But that's not what they did. So there is a lot of confusion around it.
Because she was cast, she was one of those people that was cast relatively late in the game, or announced anyway. Even if they had cast her, they didn't announce it. So I thought, because it is curious, because she, I mean, let's be honest, she's, from a name perspective, she's one of the biggest names in this cast. So the fact that she signed. She was announced so late, and it's kind of hard to imagine that her role. I mean, her role might be important from a storytelling perspective, but she probably isn't going to get a ton of screen time. But
yeah, and if we're gonna just talk a couple more characters before we move on to a different segment, the last two I'd like to bring up are Waylon Sanders is a character that is played by Chris Coy, who does appear in the teaser. And Waylon Sanders is described as an intelligent survivor or a nervous truck driver. His age and real name is unknown, but he is unbound by the laws of nature. And in that same mold, later that same month of April, the character Anton was announced, who's played by Paul Ben Victor, who is also in the teaser. And Anton is described as an extraterrestrial devoted to exposing the truth and exacting vengeance against those who wronged his people. Consumed by a deep and unrelenting hatred for the law, he is determined to deliver justice on his own terms. And I'm sure both these people are going to be people we're talking about later, so I wanted to make sure that they got thrown in.
Gotcha.
yes, that's where the Atrocitus rumors come from.
Yeah, that Paul Ben Victor's Anton is rumored to be Atrocitus, and Chris Coy's Waylon Sanders, we don't know. And Chris Coy, I knew him from Banshee as well, alongside our Sinestro actor. He's in like the last 2 seasons, I think.
The Black Hand, I think, is what some people suspect for him potentially.
Yeah, I've also heard Black Hand for the Makins, William and
Yeah,
Billy.
that's true too. That is true, actually.
Yeah,
There's a lot, again, rumors happen because they don't put out official information, and then we are grasping at straws, waiting for stuff to come out.
Yeah, 100%. All right. What do we want to move to next?
Before we move on, I noticed it right after we were shutting down the room. Technically speaking, Jessica Jordan, the role of Hal's mother, appears to be cast, so that probably leaves out the idea that Laura Linney could be playing Hal's mom.
Yeah, it'll get people talking in the comments.
Yeah. I mean, most people think. I mean, like you said, Carol is what most people would suspect, but we don't know. Maybe it's a small but important role or scene in a few episodes. But all right, moving on.
All right, Will, what's next?
I think before we get into the breakdown of our reactions more in depth to what the teaser was, I just want to cover some bits of the official story that we've been given, because there's been a lot of rumors and misinformation out there about that as well. So I just want to cite a couple things. The official logline for the show says the series follows new recruit Jon Stewart and Lantern legend Hal Jordan to intergalactic cops drawn into a dark Earth-based mystery as they investigate a murder in the American heartland. That's the official logline from the official press release. In an interview that was done on Collider with Porna Jaganathan, when they get to their spot where they're talking about the story, they talk about the characters, and then they say the show will follow Green Lanterns as they investigate a dark earthbound mystery that ties into larger intergalactic stakes. And then executive producer and director of the first 2 episodes, James Hawes, in a YouTube interview, was trying to calm fans down and said that we weren't going to disappoint, the hardcore fan. But the point that he was making was that we meet these characters in very grounded stakes before we go intergalactic. There's a lot of people out there who are worried that the show is going to take place 100% on Earth, 100% of the time. There are multiple instances of official press release information or the director working on the show mentioning specifically that at some point we will go intergalactic. This is not 100% terrestrial based. Biggest bit of misinformation around the show.
Yeah, I think the teaser did a lot to piss people off in that regard, with not realizing that it's that's all from the first episode or 2, probably, most likely.
I would be willing to bet that there's nothing in that is after anything in episode 3 for sure. But most likely, if I had to put money on it, I would say it's all first and second episode footage for the most part, which based on what they're saying is when we meet these characters, it's a grounded environment. It is on Earth. That's exactly what we should be seeing. And hopefully when we get to the official trailer, they show more of that intergalactic base and maybe put some fears at ease.
Yeah, here's hoping.
And then I would just love to hear what you guys thought about the teaser itself. What did it accomplish for you? Did you get more hyped? Are you less hyped? Or is this kind of like what you thought it was going to be?
Go ahead, Mark.
Based on the teaser, I would say it is what I expected it to be. at this point. Like I mentioned to chat last week, I think this trailer essentially it wasn't really designed for us, for all of us. It's designed for the non-diehard superhero fan, the non-diehard DC fan, the people who are going to watch this show no matter what to start with. Doesn't mean they can't jump ship, but it means they're going to. It's an audience they already know that they have. So I think this teaser is to try to rein in people, pull people in who are not typical comic book fans, who are drama fans, who certainly are, as we know, fans of the True Detective model, or even people who might get caught up in the, as I call it, the bizarro Lethal Weapon dynamic, where you have the old cop keep saying, "I'm not too old for this shit," and the young cop his partner keeps going, "Yeah, you are, retire." But I think the tone on that level. That's why it didn't surprise me that we didn't really see any constructs and anything else. Plus, we did see the constructs already in the Green Lantern movie. I mean, excuse me, so I wish the Superman movie. So so it's not like, oh, how are they going to do the constructs? I mean, we have an idea because we just saw it last year. So it's not as pressing, arguably, to see it other than to assuage people and to make people feel better. So I'm interested. Some of the concerns I still had about this project all along, I still have, but I think it doesn't surprise me. I have hope. I got to channel my inner Saint Walker since he gets shafted all the time anyway. I might as well stand up for him too and say I have hope that this could be really, really, really good. But I'm still waiting to be convinced that it's good.
Yeah, my hope was pretty much almost immediately confirmed by HBO themselves when somebody was tweeting something about, like, oh my God, bro, where's the green? He's Green Lantern, which HBO Max retweeted with a screenshot of a fry basket that was green in the trailer somewhere and said, what do you mean there's no green? They're being very right cheeky about it on purpose.
Yeah, I feel like if they didn't think that the next bit of footage that they put out would have some green in it, this would be a terrible PR move to be like, what do you mean? And then you drop the next bit of footage and there's still a lack of green in there. And what people are looking for, obviously, is like constructs or auras around the Green Lanterns and stuff like that. But the fact that I think the social teams are having fun with it, they're probably more in the know than we are. So I do think that should help alleviate fears a little bit. I think you're 100% right on that.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I just feel like if they were doing it, like kind of like what you alluded to, Will, is like you're a massive dick otherwise.
Yeah, it would hurt you a lot in just a couple weeks or months whenever the next thing comes out. If it's just more of the same, it would be a huge L, and probably whoever was in charge of that type of marketing, there would be conversations going on with them like, what are y'all doing? Especially if you know what's coming next. That's not a good look for us.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with Ralph over at Lanterns Live about his opinion about the suit, because he says that green part at the shoulders to him looks like the way a lot of costume designers attach a cape to modern costumes. So it could very well be a cape, and who's a Green Lantern who's worn a cape? Right. So along with the idea of that lantern that we saw being very much like an old school, anything alien in design. Now that could all be, it could turn out to be an old Hal Jordan uniform. It could turn out to be the lantern, design. Maybe it's disguised, or maybe it takes on a shape familiar to the planet that it's on, just, to evade suspicion if it's sitting in your house or some crap. Maybe this is Alan's suit and it's got a Green Lantern specific symbol on it because, as Green Lantern fans, we already know how complicated the history of Alan Scott Green Lantern versus Space Cop Green Lanterns and trying to make a connection between the two has been in continuity. You had to invent Yalan Gur, and you had to do A, B, C, D. You had to make him part of the Corps at some point. Like they've done all kinds of hijinks within continuity and publication history to try and tie why Alan called himself Green Lantern when the space cops have been existing already for millennia by the same name. They've done so much mental gymnastics to try and tie those two together. It would not surprise me if we get a classic Alan Scott costume that happens to have a version of the core logo on it. It would be no crazier than the rest of the stuff that they've done to try and make sense of that continuity.
I think that'd be really cool if it was Alan's. The only thing I have reservation on is if that's Alan's outfit, and based on Alan's recent character, I think having his costume be in the closet, it would definitely ruffle some feathers. I'll say that.
Actually, when you say it that way, considering where we are with DC, that probably increases the odds. Chad could be right about that, but I think it's more likely the battery could be Alan's. I think the costume. I don't know. I think.
What do you guys think of the look of the battery?
I think it looks cool, antique-y. I think it works. If it's the core battery, but I don't know that a 1-for-1 replica of what I have sitting on my shelf would be any better in a live action TV show. Wouldn't something like what we all own in our own personal collection kind of just look like a prop at this point?
I think that's fair. Mark, what do you think? Did you like the look of it, or is it weird?
I think it's a little weird. Like I said, if it turns out that it's Alan, if it is Alan's battery, if somehow Alan is involved or was involved as a victim in what they're exploring, I think personally I'd be more comfortable with that being the shape of either Alan's battery, or it could still be an individual battery, as long as, much like the uniforms and arguably sometimes the rings, they can take on different appearances based on the bearer. That if the batteries can do that too, then it's less of a problem. But like Chad said, that's supposed to be the standard core, the Green Lantern core battery. I don't know. I probably can get used to it, but I don't necessarily know if that's a step. I certainly wouldn't think on the surface. My initial reaction is not that it's a step up from the battery that we had in the Ryan Reynolds movie, which at least was something unique, still unique, not classic, but at least they kind of modified it and made it its own, but yet people said, okay, I can see that. It looked alien, but yet it still was a lantern. This one looks, this looks much more like Alan's battery. So if there's a plot point why that's the case, I'm all for it. But if that's just a random standard battery that shape they decided for the whole Green Lantern Corps, then I would have to be convinced.
I think that's where I'm at on it. Is I'm such a sucker for collecting things that to have that hit the merch shop and be something I can own and put on my shelf with the other lanterns, it's like a piece that immediately, if somebody walked in and they saw I've got 15 lanterns up and 10 look exactly the same, they're going to point to the ones that look different and want to know more about those ones. And this one both looks more like you would think an Alan Scott battery in live action would look like, and it's just very unique and different than anything we've seen before, that every time I watch it, it's grown on me more and more and more. But I'm also like an eternal optimist. Until something is officially horrible in my eyes, I'm like ready to champion it at all times.
Yeah, I think if I'm being 100% honest, if anything about the teaser ticked me off in any way, other than the lack of green, and I will say, I think I can still fairly be pissed about the lack of VFX. I mean, I can understand why, and I can champion the show, and I can point to the humor that the social teams are making, and so on and so forth. But I can still be aggravated that it wasn't in there. As far as things that they got, that I feel like, oh, that looks weird, or that gives me concern, or that's wrong, or anything, I will fully admit the costume bothered me. And it's not even just the coloring. I also think the symbols weirdly small. That feels like a real nitpick. But then you've seen the clips. When they fade into that scene of the costume in the closet, there's another costume in front of it in a bag.
Two.
Is that correct or no?
Yeah. Yep. There are two costumes in, like, if you would have got your stuff dry cleaned and then brought it home, it's in like that type of white bag. And all you can see is there's a cutout right where another Green Lantern logo is. And you can't see any of the rest of the costume because we were trying to speculate by zooming in and stuff. Is the one that we see at the back, is that just dirty and grimy because it's been used so much, or it's been beat up through different attacks?
He hasn't had it cleaned at the local dry cleaners.
and it would actually be like more green or more white, where it's more kind of brown or gold.
Maybe him using his energy lights it up more. I don't know.
Kind of like an Earth One thing.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know.
And if they are going that route,
the costume pissed me off is the only thing. If anything pissed me off, I think the costume gave me some concern. But seeing that it wasn't the only the only costume in the closet, kind of alleviated that, anyways.
There was only a couple things I was really hoping to look for and get shown in this. I thought we were gonna get like a minute of footage. If you look at teasers for a lot of other more recent shows and movies that have come out, usually when they do the little sizzle reel, the next thing is like a 1 minute teaser. So that the fact that we got over 2 minutes, I thought was really cool. But in watching it, all I wanted was, when you've told me from the jump that this is like True Detective, it's in the mold of True Detective, we're making it like True Detective, I wanted to feel like it's a story that would make sense on the actual True Detective show. And to me, if you just look at it from that lens, this looks like, from a teaser standpoint, the second best season of True Detective since the very first one, which is what I'm hoping that they're going for. And then in terms of like nitpicks from it, obviously, just like everybody else, when I saw the uniform, I was startled a little bit because I was not expecting that at all. I hadn't heard anything through like leaks or rumors, or even the people who saw, I'm assuming it was this, months ago, I think in Brazil or Spain. Nobody described the suit like this. And that was probably like my least favorite thing of the whole teaser. But like the one thing I did want to see was, I knew because of the serious tone, and this is HBO, we're going to get a solid like mysterious story. There's going to be, a lot of like anxiety and high pressure, tense moments. But I wanted to see some humor too, especially with how, if the words they use in the teaser are exactly how they are, they're not just cut up from different scenes to make it seem like Hal and John are kind of going at it. I also wanted to see some humor between them. And when they opened it up and Hal jumps out of the car and then John comes back to him later, and Hal's sitting down at a restaurant just eating outside, and he's clapping as John walks up and he's like, "You could have killed me." That little like smirk that he gets right there, that's kind of what I was hoping for. We would get a little bit of that and see that it's not just this like strained relationship the whole time, but that there is some mutual like respect, and like when you can joke around with your buddies like that, it's usually a good sign. And I was hoping we would see kind of more of that.
Yeah, I think you touch upon an important point, because we hope, I kind of, somewhat jokingly, you said the Bizarro Lethal Weapon thing. We kind of hope that at least the one thing that's not completely absent is that there's at least, even if it's not in the beginning, but by the end, regardless of what they do with Hal, that at least there is more some kind of a grudging respect between the two of them, even if they're not, buddy by the very end, as opposed to being literally at each other's throats, or just, you get the impression every single time they're together that they're like 90% of each one of them can't stand the other at all, and it's only the 10% know they have to tolerate each other, and that's the only reason why they're just not throwing punches every step of the way. But you hope that, like we talked about, that so much of this is probably from the early episodes of the show, that it's one of those things that kind of gets ironed out, and at least you don't go from, "Hey, I hate you," to "I love you," like in the one episode. But at least that you see progression and you see the change in the relationship, because if not, I think that's probably going to be a big problem for many people, I would suspect.
The other thing I was kind of hoping to see, just based on, we went over character descriptions and stuff like that, and there's multiple instances where, like, we know Sinestro is an alien. Based on the character description, we knew Anton is an extraterrestrial, and we knew Wayland Sanders was a character that was not bound by the laws of, nature. We didn't know his age or real name or anything like that. And if they popped up in the teaser, I was really interested to see like what they would look like. And would they be like a Red Lantern Atrocitus? Would we see Sinestro in his Sinestro Corps outfit? What? And I was a little bit surprised that everybody we saw 100% looks human in this moment. So I've got questions around, is there some sort of, cloaking device that's kind of covering this area that's making even the aliens look like humans? Or are we getting like human versions of these aliens throughout the entire show? That's throwing me off a little bit. And then that scene between Hal Jordan and Waylon Sanders at the end, where Hal has him in the interrogation office. Hal's not a bad guy. Waylon Sanders is handcuffed, but he picks him up, shoves him up against the glass, and he throws him like he's going to beat him. And he even takes the ring out. And the one time that we start to get, the visual effects team showing up with, the green coming out of the ring, they cut it off early. But Hal definitely looks like he's about to use the ring on that character who's handcuffed. And all I could think about is Hal knows at this point that this person is not who he says he is, and he's trying to like get into a fight with him so this guy will show us what his real form is. I don't know what it is. I don't even know if that's actually how the scene is playing out. But like that's been the thing that has stuck with me for all of the teaser that we've seen since then, is the questions around the alien characters on the show and what we're getting from them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And like no Sinestro at all, as far as we could tell.
Yeah, there either has to be something like you hinted at, something maybe what's going on in that town. It allows them to hide themselves, along with of course, there's always the possibility that some of what we're seeing is just they want us to believe that this is what these characters are going to look like. And I mean, I don't think that would be true in the interrogation scene, but I think that would be more true like with the, if it does turn out that's Atrocitus, then yes, it could be some disguise he's able to handle. But it's also where they just don't want to play their cards and show you what he kind of like hey, Thor has two eyes until you see the movie and he doesn't. It's like, oh, he only has one eye left. Or that would be more true than them changing their minds, like the Hulk running into Wakanda. That was just a change of the story. But yeah, so I would agree with you. I think that is intriguing because it's good. It would be very, very weird if every single time we see Sinestro, especially if he really is in all 8 episodes, that we see him as human, in a human form. If not all the time, like 90% of the time we see him, he just looks like a human. That would be kind of weird.
I think in terms of all the cosmic stuff, if you're comparing us going intergalactic and then with the characters that we've seen thus far in the teaser, it would feel like it would have to be some sort of disguise or something to that effect. Cloaking, personal force field. I think who the hell knows. But I feel like that would be the best way to go. But I part of me just wonders if we've not really seen anything close to our intergalactic characters just yet, and that it is what it is, just as we've seen it. But I'm just trying to reconcile that with the notion that we're going to be going cosmic, that we're going to be getting the powers and being really on top of this stuff. So like it feels out of left field for everything that we have gotten in the teaser to be wholly unrelated to the rest of the characters and cast that we'll become familiar with in, If the teaser that we got is the first 2 episodes or pieces of the first 2 episodes, whether it's 60-40 or whatever, then, people that we won't meet until, the final 6 episodes of the 8, we haven't even seen anything of yet. I don't know. That just feels weird.
It does feel weird. And I know a lot of people are like, Hal Jordan's been cast as a, 60-year-old man. They're probably doing parallax with him. He was harsh in the teaser, but I don't think he exhibited anything that would make me think that they're still going in the parallax direction. The only time, when everybody's saying where's the green, the only time you really see a whole lot of yellow in any shot is when John is being held down on the ground and there's like an alien looking gun being held to his head. If you look at the colors inside the gun, like what's being injected into him, that sure looks like yellow to me. And I wonder if in this it's going to be John who has to overcome the fear element to show Hal that he's ready to get like his own ring and be a full-fledged Green Lantern and not need to share equipment, so to speak.
Yeah, agreed.
Was there anything for you guys that you thought was missing, that where you were like expecting to see a specific thing when we finally got footage and it just wasn't there?
Maybe other than Sinestro, I would say no. But again, since we don't know how they're going to handle, like we just talked about, how they're going to handle Sinestro and how much of the story is with Sinestro and maybe in the present versus maybe some being in the past, that maybe that's also a reason why they're not going to show it. But for me, I don't think so. I think they kind of showed it. The trailer was mostly would I've liked to have seen more constructs and more powers and different things, but for better / or for worse, time will tell. It pretty much was exactly what I expected to see.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest thing that I took away from this is everybody, ourselves included, because I fully think that, I fully see the writing on the wall. Everybody else does, about the way in which they're going about the replacing of Hal Jordan with Jon Stewart. Like they cast Kyle Chandler because they wanted an older character, because it's Hal's retirement story and we're never going to get Hal Jordan in the DCU and so on and so forth. Like I see that, and part of me even agrees with it. But a big part of the reason I wanted to try and do this episode is just because we have been spouting this the entire time in anticipation of this show. But in what we have seen, in what has been physically presented to us as relatively finished product thus far, he calls John a substitute teacher and says, "This is my job, and as long as I'm alive, that ain't changing." Those are Hal Jordan's own words as presented to us in the finished product for the most part.
Yep.
So when it comes to what we've actually been shown, yes, sure, it could be he's saying those things because, just like any other good story, that's a setup for him to coming to terms with his retirement later on in that, or he dies in a heroic explosion of some, blast of impossible display of willpower, whatever. Anything could happen. It's still possible. Yes, I get that. But in terms of what we've been shown, it's okay, I'll train you, John, but I don't have to like it. I'm still the top dog. So I don't know. That feels very we're shuffling Hal off into the nether.
But if you had to bet, do you think that's what's gonna happen?
The only reason I don't is because, and by that I mean, like, I still think it's possible we're getting rid of Hal by the end of this season, is strictly because of the continuation of this universe. Does it make sense to contract for multiple movies or other projects and appearances 2 people or 1 person? And who are you going to do it with, Kyle Chandler or Aaron Pierre? And I think business-wise, movie-wise, whatever, and we all know that. I think of the 3 of us here, I know the least about that stuff. But even for me, it feels more like of a logical choice to go with Aaron, not just because of age, but Kyle Chandler's a relatively big name. And do you want to spend so much of whatever budget you may or may not have because we're still relatively early in building this universe. I would assume there are more big names to come. How much of our budget do we want to spend locking down Kyle Chandler right now for successive movies and TV shows in the future? Or would it be, he's a big name, he's a popular name because of what Will was talking about with his other projects, but isn't Aaron Pierre relatively, I don't know, wouldn't he be cheaper? I don't mean that disparagingly. Wouldn't he technically be cheaper, I would assume, than a name like Kyle Chandler?
He would have to be cheaper, but Kyle Chandler is not exactly Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark as far as breaking the bank.
That's true.
Kyle Chandler, obviously they had a budget for the show, and I don't know. I would kind of suspect they were willing to pay Brolin more money than Kyle Chandler. I could be wrong about that, but I don't know. I agree, but now again, that line in the trailer about, basically Hal saying, "Hey, you'll get this ring off me when you pry it from my cold dead finger," could be just a red herring because they literally know that's what people have already made up their minds. They expect that to happen, so this will feed that just so they be surprised. But It's I don't know. I would be surprised, especially since we haven't heard anything about Kyle Chandler signing on for anything more than just this one series, which doesn't mean that he hasn't. But nothing's ever come out that said, oh yeah, he signed for 2 seasons, or he signed for multiple appearances, or he has a certain number of year contract with them, or a certain number of appearances to make. It doesn't mean they can't bring him back, depending on how they end this. But I personally would be surprised if Hal's alive and well. Maybe best case scenario, he's retired, which means you could bring him back that way. I think that's the best case scenario. But if I would probably suspect he is going to be seemingly dead by the end of this series, probably.
I mean, that's the most thought thing out there, is that he's going to be dead by the end of the season. My hope is that that's not the case, and that he either gets to successfully retire and he feels good because John has shown him that, he can handle this. He can shoulder the burden, so to speak, and he's a good successor to Hal. Or something calls Hal away at the end, and the Guardians see how much of a boon it would be to have John in the Green Lantern Corps, so they bestow upon him the ring and the uniform and all that, and they allow them to continue to exist, because we already have Guy Gardner and we have Hal Jordan, who are Green Lanterns in the universe already. So the Guardians are familiar and must already be cool with having multiple from Earth. What's the harm in adding a third? So my hope is that they have some sort of nice ending. And because this does have Damon Lindelof written all over it, he does like to subvert expectations, with the most popular stuff being said ever since the first casting rumors came out about an older Hal Jordan. Everybody has pointed to him dying, going crazy, parallax or whatever, and needing to be killed or having to sacrifice himself to save everybody else. I hope that they have a well-written twist in there somewhere that allows us to still have somewhat of a happy ending for Hal Jordan as well. To Chad's point about like the cost and the budgets, yes, when DC signed Aaron Pierre, he really had been in just like 2 or 3 things that people kind of knew him from before he did Rebel Ridge that went on to win like a couple Gotham Awards. And so he was signed to a deal then for whatever they felt was fair value for him and him from them. And then from there, he did like the voice of Simba and Mufasa. He does a voice in the movie Goat. He was on Apple's TV show, The Morning Show. Like everything he's been in since then has either been critically acclaimed, or if it's a box office thing, it has made bank at the box office. So they were able to sign him at a good time. So if they want to get the most value out of that, I would throw that guy into movies as well. And I'm hoping he shows up in the next Superman movie, but I don't know if that's actually going to be a thing or not.
No, I think the only other thing would that I would say would gave me any concern in the teaser was what other people have pointed out, the fact that that Hal's talking about the other Green Lanterns are aliens. One of them's a fucking squirrel. We can talk about the cursing if we want, but it's HBO, and they probably really just wanted to drive home the "this is for adults" thing. But that meaning like he doesn't know who Guy is, and he's not talking, like he doesn't have a friendship with Tomar Ray. He wasn't trained by Kilowog. Like, what does that mean? But I don't know. I think that might just be Hal being Hal in that moment. He's probably pissed off, and who knows.
and probably it's probably out of context. It just makes it, the way they cut it, it makes it seem like John's just asking a general question, like, have you ever talked to any Lanterns? It may be specifically about this situation and what they're dealing with. And then based on time constraints or other things, that's why he could just be answering. It's like, I don't have time for this. It's like, they're effing aliens. It's like, what the hell? How are they going to help us solve this issue in the Midwest or wherever in the Southwest in the United States? It's like, come on. So I'm sure we'll get, that's one of those nitpicks, I think. That's when when people are really digging, trying to find stuff. We all know that those people, the people that just live to, oh, look, there's a continuity problem. Not because it literally throws it in your face where you can't avoid it. Like having the 7 power batteries on Oa, and they keep telling us there's only 6, but we saw 7. That thing, which even in this issue, they reference the same problem without resolving it. But not like that. When people are just, oh, I want to be the smartest person in the room. It's like, That's something that probably will be explained in the story, and then it will make sense. Until you watch it, you can't say, "Oh, it's a continuity error or it's a plot point error." It's like, no, we don't know that yet. There may be a very logical reason why Hal is not including Guy in this discussion.
I actually think
it's also very ornery, pissed off Hal to fully not acknowledge Guy on purpose.
that part I did like, and I actually think, Mark, you are spot on. I think when it comes to that conversation they're having, whatever the issue is, I think it is basically an Earth-based issue. So when John's asking, have you talked to anybody else in the Corps? One, he doesn't say no. But two, he says, they're aliens. I'm the only human. One of them's a effing squirrel. If he's talking about a specific Earth-based problem that the aliens wouldn't understand, like maybe that's what he's quipping back to be like, they wouldn't understand. There's no point talking to them. What's a squirrel going to tell me about this thing that we're running into here? I think that is actually spot on, and I hadn't even thought of that until you just said it.
Well, thank you. But thank you very much.
Mark has that effect.
Yeah, I pull that out once in a while. But and it could be also Hal's his subtle disdain for the Guardians too. It's like, what pearls of wisdom are these idiots going to bring to the table right now? Because trust me, I've worked for them for years. They don't bring much.
Yeah, to be fairly honest, like, it's very in character for Hal Jordan to get into some sort of mess and not consult anybody about it.
Just like that. Just like, to me, the best line in the trailer is about the when John's saying to Hal that it's a stupid plan. He says, "I've had stupider." That is and not just John's stoic reaction to it, assuming it's cut properly, which in that case it probably is, but just the fact that we can laugh at that because that's part of Hal's personality. He just the fools rush in aspect, that he goes where angels fear to tread. It's like Hal just leaps. He leaps before he looks. So that it's kind of appropriate that if his instinct tells him to do something, he's going to do it, even if on the surface it makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, 100%. I think what you said, Mark, it kind of sums up my thing, and this is exactly what I've been saying online every time anybody gives me crap for actually liking the teaser. Is at the end of the day, I'm still going to see it to make my final decision. So if I'm going to be pissed, why am I going to waste my time for the next 6 months or whatever being actively angry at something I'm going to watch anyways and then judge it on its own? Why would I add to it? Yeah. If it turns out to be a pile of crap, why would I be pouting in advance?
There's plenty of time to bury it later.
All right. So yeah, for me, I think the whole thing about all the complaining, I fully get it. There are people who are against this show for legitimate reasons. Myron is our perfect example. I'm sorry, I keep coming back to this. We know what Hal means to Myron. So the fact that they're doing what we suppose they're doing to Hal by casting an older guy like Kyle, like, I get why Myron's out. I'm sure there are people hating on this trailer who have just as many complicated reasons for disliking this so vehemently that they're going to make us think about it. But the problem is, I just know, because it's the mother effing internet, that a good 70% of the people bitching about this online are going to watch it anyways just to have something else to bitch about more. So if you're going to watch it anyways, why are you wasting your time stressing out, dedicating time to ranting on social media? It's all just attention grabbing anyways. That's all a social media is anyways. Negativity spreads like wildfire, and if people are bitching about something, it has a name. It's called rage baiting. They're doing it on purpose. But like, if you really are just going to be like, hey, you know what? I will judge it on what it actually is when I see it. Then why are we wasting effort just bitching about it right now? I will fully admit, as much as I have either defended or hated on this show or whatever, if I'm still going to see it anyways, I am more than willing to switch my opinion one way or the other. If it sucks, I will say on air it sucks. If it exceeds all expectations, I will gush about it. I am not going in with any preconceived notions of, honestly, my only hope, my biggest hope, because I don't want to get my hopes too high, is that I just get a better Lantern adaptation in live action than I got in 2011.
Amen.
Well, we have no Ryan Reynolds, so that's a plus right there.
I don't know how you guys, just final thoughts on how you feel about it all.
I am hopeful, as I have always been around the show. Like you, I think a lot of this just comes from the hope that it's going to be better than what we had previously. So at least from like a national media and bigger stage standpoint, we'll have something different to talk about than everybody pointing how bad or what they didn't like about the 2011 movie and why we're not getting any more Green Lantern live action adaptations. It would be nice to move on from that. And like you said, around the negativity, for me, once it is here, if it is bad, I'll say it's bad. But I just can't wrap my head around spending from the very first picture we got last February to what will now be August before we see the first episode. I couldn't imagine spending a year plus waking up every day and finding something to be in a bad mood about. I'd rather just go in happy, thinking, this is going to be okay. It's going to pan out. And then if it's not, well, then I just have it not being good for a handful of weeks and then I can move on. But if it ends up good, then you just spent a year plus worrying about something, and then it didn't even pan out as bad as you thought it was going to be. I think everybody is entitled to their take online. I think if you hate it, that's fair. If you love it, that's fair. The one thing I would ask for people is if you are going to have an opinion one way or the other, make it about the show. Don't attack your fellow fan.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that. People actively seeking out other people to tell them why they're wrong. And I'm not just saying like people who hate the show seeking out people who liked the teaser to tell them they're wrong. The opposite is happening too. Mm-hmm. So like I don't understand. Just have your opinion. You don't have to fight each other about why the other one is horribly wrong.
But that's just emblematic of where we are in society. Mm-hmm. Everybody's echo chambers, and then you want to rally your group to attack the other group that dares to have a different opinion. Go ahead.
No, I was going to give my closing thoughts.
Go ahead.
We were at
That's
that
fine.
point. Yeah, so I, as somebody who is genuinely a happy dude most of the time, and I'd like to not get into that online negativity echo chamber, I wanted to say just two things in closing. One, Mark, did you have a birthday recently?
Yes, I did.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
And the second thing is I've sent this to you guys in emails when we're talking back and forth and sometimes in DMs, but the advocate you guys are on the LanternCast for being a united fandom in terms of being fun and respectful regardless of your take, it goes a long way. And usually like when I recommend people what they should tune into or listen to, you guys get brought up all the time because you both just seem like genuinely good people overall. You, at least from what I have seen and what I've dealt with personally, you guys don't view everybody else in like the Green Lantern creator space as competition. It's we're all here doing our thing, trying to be different in our own ways, but we all rally around the same thing. We love Green Lantern for what it is. And you guys have always been very open and welcoming. The stuff we do with GL June, I know you try to like deflect credit all the time, but you guys are a massive reason why GL June gets done every year. And the first time you guys had reached out to me, I had only been doing podcasting for Green Lantern stuff for a few months. So to come into a fandom that has very well-established creators who have been around for 15 plus years, and there's multiple of you that have gone 10 plus years, to have somebody like that reach out to a small account and ask like, hey, do you want to be a part of this thing? Enough praise cannot be heaped on you guys, not just for like the podcasters you are, but the people you guys are. And I just want to tell you guys how much I appreciate you and thank you for involving everybody and having fun takes and even doing different things like one-off episodes around Pokemon collecting cards. And, sometimes it's nice to just have, a break where you can listen to people talk about, you tune in week after week knowing that you're going to talk about Green Lantern stuff. But then, every now and again, you get this little special episode where you get to kind of know more about the people behind the microphones. And like I said, I really appreciate you guys and thank you guys for always being welcoming and especially for having me on for this episode. It was a lot of fun.
Well, you're very welcome. And those were very kind words, and we feel the same. You're always welcome on the show. Geez, Chad, you want to talk about GL June now since you gave us a perfect segue?
I'm surprised, honestly, that you didn't make a joke that I should be sending Will payment for that phrase. Yeah, we should talk about GL June because it's happening again.
Every year there's a June, so there's a good chance we might have one.
Yeah, it is GL June. I guess we should announce the story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we will be doing 6 episodes of GL June this year because there are 6 issues to talk about. We are talking about was it Prestige format, Mark? Those were all like thicker books, right? Those weren't regular 36-page issues, were they?
You're talking to the wrong one on this. Remember, most of my Brave and the Bold experience is mostly with the series they restarted, not the one that.
Yeah, this was a standalone. So basically, guys, we're talking Brave and the Bold. It's the Flash and Green Lantern specific miniseries, 6-issue miniseries. So I think it was Mark Waid. I
think
really
that's correct.
Yeah, I really shouldn't be spitballing here without pulling up actual information. Dan picked that one out this year. All of our previous year participants will be joining us. That will be obviously us. Will be joining us with Green Lanterns podcast. We have Myron and Phil doing their thing over at Podcast of Oa. We have Donnie and Adam doing their thing over at Emerald Echo. And joining us this year will be Ralph over at Lanterns Live.
Woohoo! Getting in another new face because, again, you guys are always welcoming of new people in the fandom. Can't say it enough.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. The check's in the mail.
Thank you.
Chad has to pay a lot of people. Let's just get that out there. A lot of people.
I need a new computer badly first. Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Will. Before we close out the episode, where can people find you?
The easiest thing to do is just go to greenlanternspodcast.com. And whatever social network you are on, if I'm on it, there's a little button at the top that you can click. YouTube, Threads, Instagram, whatever. All the latest and greatest are there. If I'm on it, there's a button to click that'll take you there. Very easy to find.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And as we get closer to Lanterns coming out, if you are looking for someone actually like posting about the new news, the new rumors, so on and so forth, Will's your guy because we don't really do that. We just talk about it when it comes up in conversation on the episode. We're not really posting, basically live tweeting as this news stuff comes out. That's Will. Go to him for that.
Please.
Mark, in the meantime, if people want to reach out to us, what do they do?
LanternCast@gmail.com is the email. LanternCast.com. You can figure that out. That's the website. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Twitter, Facebook. Use hashtag GeoCast to track us down. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you listen to us on. Please leave us a positive review. Last but not least, if you'd like to leave us a text or a voicemail, 708-LANTERN, and let us know what you think.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Catch you guys later.